The Goose Girl. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess. When the princess grew up, she was expected to marry a prince who lived in a faraway land. So the princess set off for the prince's palace with her maid. She rode upon a talking horse called Falada, which was given to her by a good fairy. On the way, the princess became thirsty, so she asked her maid for a drink. But the maid replied, "Get it for yourself." The princess was surprised and a little afraid. They rode on, but the sun was so hot that the princess was soon thirsty again. Once more the princess asked her maid for a drink, but again she refused to get one. Then the maid said, "I will ride Falada and you will ride my horse." The princess was too scared to say no. She also had to give the maid her royal clothes and put on the maid's dirty clothes. At last they reached the prince's palace, and the maid said she would make sure the princess went to prison if she told anybody what had happened. But Falada had seen everything. The prince was happy to see the princess. He didn't know it was the maid dressed in the princess's clothes. The real princess was sent to look after the king's geese with a boy called Conrad. The maid was worried that Falada would tell the prince she wasn't really the princess, so she said to him, "The horse I rode here was very wild. I want you to set it free." The prince was surprised, but he didn't want to upset her, so poor Falada was taken away. The real princess wept when she heard what had happened. The next day the real princess and Conrad passed through the gate and saw Falada waiting outside. The princess cried, "Oh, Falada, what has become of you?" And the horse replied, "Dear princess, if your mother knew what had happened, her heart would be broken." Conrad and the princess took the geese into a field, and the princess stopped to comb her hair. Conrad wanted a strand of her lovely hair, but the princess said, "Blow, wind, blow, blow Conrad's hat. Go." At once a gust of wind blew Conrad's hat away, and he had to chase after it. When he returned, the princess had tied her hair back, and Conrad was angry and would not speak to her. The next day the same thing happened, and the day after that. At the end of the third day, Conrad spoke to the king. "I cannot look after the geese with that strange girl any more, as she does nothing but tease me." Conrad told the king what happened, but the king told him to go out again the following day. This time the king hid behind the gate. He heard what the real princess said to Falada and what the horse replied. He saw how the princess's hair glittered in the sun, and he heard the princess tell the wind to blow Conrad's hat away. When the Goose Girl returned that evening, the king asked her why she said those things to the horse. "I shall be killed if I tell you," she wept. But the king begged her to tell him the truth, so she told him the whole story. The king was very angry when he heard what had happened. He told his servants to bring the princess her royal clothes. She looked beautiful. Then he told his son that the lady he thought was a princess was really a maid. The maid was sent far away, and the prince fell in love with the real princess, and they were married. The good fairy visited and brought Falada back to the princess, and the prince, princess, and Falada lived happily ever after.